Okay. Uh, it says it's preparing to live stream, but usually that means it's actually working. There's Tom. Okay. All right, we're official. Preparing to live stream. All right. Hey, everybody. Hope you're feeling a little better, Lou. Hang in as much as you can. I made a couple other folks co-host just in case, but right now it's set up to that anyone can just screen share whenever it's time. We're trying to learn how to use Zoom. Uh, First thing I want to do is welcome, I think we have at least two new folks, more or less. Looks like Richard Kidd and Tom Rayer. And would you guys, I'll start with Tom. You joined earliest. Do you just want to say hey and let us know what you're interested in? And then I'll
Yeah.
follow up with Tom or Richard. So go ahead, Tom.
So, um, I've always been interested in astronomy. Recently, I've gotten back into it. I bought a telescope through Craigslist. It's a Celestron. It's on the XLT 127 millimeters. It's basically a C5. It's a 5-inch SCT. Um, so I've basically been. Um, it was in pretty poor shape when I bought it. I took it apart, put it back together, collimated it, um, and starting to get better at the photography with it. I was telling John I had bought a ASI 585 MC planetary camera, so I've been messing with that for about a year, and then I also have a filter wheel, and I'm starting to mess with that a little bit. Um, Currently, I'm looking at mounts. I'm getting to the point where I can. It's a alt azimuth, manual mount right now, but I have no tracking ability at all. And I think if I want to get anything more um, serious, that sooner or later I just got to buy a good mount. So I've been looking at a couple mounts, and later on, I guess I'll ask for your guys' opinion on what the best mount is to get. Um, but I've heard about this group through a couple different avenues, through people I've met over at Valley Forge Park, and actually from the park rangers. I was saying earlier, I was there a little late and I got kicked out with my telescope. And they mentioned, the only guys that can stay later than this is Delaware Valley Astronomical Association. So look them up. I'm like, okay, I'll look them. So that about sealed it. So I was destined, I guess, to come here. Um, and I did attend the thing the other night. From Cyprus, and that was really informative. I had no idea about fire capture or anything like that. I've just been using the ASI software, and it sounds like it can get a lot more fancy than that. Um, so that's basically where I'm at. Is It's a great hobby. Looking to get into it. Um, Actually, I used to work for Lockheed over in King of Prussia, and I do have a aerospace degree, so I've kind of always been around this stuff. It's um, kind of like a pretty good love of mine, but it's been good. I'm glad to kind of meet up with you guys, and I'll try to officially join on Friday. I think you guys have a meeting in Radnor,
Yeah.
which isn't far from me at all. That was really convenient. So, so that's about it for me. It's nice to meet you all.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you
Glad you
too.
made it.
Well,
Yeah.
glad the police sent you here.
Nice to meet you too, Tom. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, we'll touch on the mount stuff if you ask what's the best mount, we're all going to give you a different answer. So,
I'm
but
considering two. Either, the ZWO, everybody says AM5N. That was one. And then, I have a unique thing. I don't know if this is really going to work out. But I guess the last total eclipse, I drug my wife up to Lake Placid, New York, and we saw the total eclipse up in Lake Placid. It was great. Um, but there's another one, as you guys know. It goes from Iceland to Spain, and I'm considering going to Spain. I will be going to Spain for that, but after after all the running around, like we went to Lake Placid, and I don't know if any of you were up there, but you could kind of see the clouds coming from west to east, and we were right on the border. Like, all right, either either we have to stay here and get lucky, or we drive east and do the best we can. And I drug my wife. Actually, even though we were staying in Lake Placid, we drove to Newport, Vermont, and we actually saw it from Newport, Vermont. So we outran the clouds, got to see the total eclipse, and it was stunning. It was really pretty cool. Um, so now I'm dragging her to Spain, and I figured uh, we actually booked a cruise, believe it or not, that is supposed to be able to see the eclipse. And now we'll see. I figured if I'm on a cruise ship, I don't have to be doing the driving. Somebody will they'll they'll do all the maneuvering to get to the best spot. All I got to do is just sit there and relax. And but this whole thing about tracking, it adds a new element of, if I want to photograph this, it's going to be rather, I think, tough from a cruise ship if I do that. So I'm still trying to figure out what's the best thing, but I'm definitely going. Whether or not I bring a mount and a scope with me, that's yet to be seen. But um, I was looking at the slewing speed of the two, and the AM5N, and there's another. Skywatcher has one that's a little faster slewing speed. So I was wondering, if I do get a good tracker, maybe I go with the Skywatcher instead. But almost everybody I talked to said go with the AM5N. So I haven't made a move yet. It's been a long time that I've been digging into those things, and it's a big purchase. So I'm kind of just saving my money and just doing all the research before I actually pull the trigger on it. So fingers
Apologize.
crossed
I
about that.
joined a little late. Tom, what are you going to put on your mount? What's your imaging rig look like?
I'll show it to you right here. This is it. It's a Celestron. It's a C5 um, on the XLT 127. And then I have a filter wheel, and I have a ZWO camera. It's the 585 MC planetary camera. Um, so that's about it. I've just been adding one thing at a time, from here and there, and it's slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Um, so that's basically where I'm at. And right now the mount is just really simple. It's just all azimuth, manual,
Mhm.
turn. And so as far as tracking, I can't really track. Like the moon, I can shoot very quickly, get enough light. The exposure time is fast enough where I just kind of need to get ahead of it, let the moon come into the picture, start snapping all the photos, and then save it off and get another position in and get another round going like that. But if I was to, I did shoot Jupiter, but it was really small. But because those are small and I'm at a higher focal length, they just zoom across. There's no way to really track them without having a higher, a more robust mount that could, guide it. So, um, so sooner or later, I'm going to make that leap. But right now, I'm in the process of just exploring and doing the research, figuring out what's best for me. I am leaning toward the AM5N, but I'm curious to see what you all use and what might be best long term. Like I I kind of want to. Everybody I talk to says put the money into the mount, whatever it is. It's that's the most important piece, and if it's probably something I'm going to do once, and then that's it, and I'll just. So it just needs to be a good platform that I can grow on. That's all.
Do you want to use it locally and travel with it too, do you think? Or
Yeah, I do. I think mostly I'm going to have to travel with it. So I was telling these guys earlier, I drug my wife up to see the eclipse up to New York and Vermont and
Mhm.
saw it up there. So I do plan on going to hopefully the eclipse in definitely the eclipse in Spain. Possibly there's another eclipse coming in a couple, maybe 5 years, I think 4 years. And that one's actually like 6 minutes long, but that goes to Gibraltar and then across North Africa. And I don't think I'm going to North Africa, but I might. Outside chance I go to Gibraltar. We'll see.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
that's the eclipse in 2027, which goes across Egypt. And believe it or not, it's like 3 years from now, and a lot of these tours are already sold out.
Now I
So
found that when I went to New York, I think I actually got the last hotel room in Lake Placid. And that was a year and maybe 3 months prior to that. So it was, yeah, I know these things fill up really quick. And I right now I'm booked on a cruise ship for the one in Spain. And we'll see how that turns out. But hopefully it'll be good. So we'll see.
Cool.
But the advice you got as far as the you know, not skimping on amount is good advice, generally speaking. The payload you have there isn't super heavy, so you have a fair amount of latitude as far as mounts go. And you mentioned, so either of those you mentioned are probably, would work fine. You did mention that you saw that the Skywatcher had a little better slew rate or a little faster slew rate than the AM5N, but that's really not a factor as far as practical use. You're not like chasing satellites necessarily where you need really fast slew rates, things like that. You're mainly just tracking the rotation of the Earth, which is very slow, relatively speaking, to compared to slewing a telescope. And uh, that that's the more critical thing is how well the mount tracks, like the tracking accuracy. And both of those choices you mentioned have very good tracking. I personally have one of the AM5s, and I have some standard German equatorial mounts, so kind of both types of mounts. And from a convenience standpoint and so far reliability and accuracy, that you really couldn't go wrong with the AM5. It's just the nice the beauty of not having to balance anything is just huge. I mean, it's a huge benefit. You kind of put the scope on. Who cares if the focuser's heavier on the left or your finder's heavier on the right? Who cares? Stick it on, within practical limits. You're not like, again, you don't have a huge payload. It is convenient.
All right, thanks. That's exactly what I was looking for. I was leaning that way. The other thing I heard somebody said, make sure both axes are geared, and I forget what it's called. It's not a worm gear, but it's like I forget what it's called, but it's I did notice if I go to Skywatcher's site and I go to the Wave 150i specs, it did mention a belt, and the guy I talked to said stay away from belts. They age, they get crusty, whatever. And he was ironically he also had an AM5, and so I wasn't sure if that was really true. If it was, you know, if it was good enough, if it was one drive had a belt and the other one was geared. Um, but that's another reason. As soon as I saw that on the Skywatcher site, I was like, you know what, maybe I will go AM5. And now that you say like the slew rate really isn't a factor because, astronomical wise, these things aren't moving. It's just the rotation of the Earth, and the AM5 should be able to keep up with it pretty well. So,
Oh yeah, I mean that's what it's made to do. So that's the sidereal rate is what it's standard tracking. And when you're slewing, you might be 128 times sidereal or something like that, or 64 times. It's a huge increase. So tracking speed is generally half sidereal rate. That's sort of the default for tracking operations. But I mean for guiding, I should say. I meant to say guiding operations is a half sidereal rate for making guiding corrections. But tracking is at if you're tracking stars and stuff like that, it's the sidereal rate. If the sun has a slightly different rate, moon has a slightly different rate.
okay, great. All right, this is great info.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I'm jealous. The new AM5 has half the periodic error of the one I bought just a year. We got the old ones.
Well, I think what might be going on there, John, is that I mean, if you look at the charts that came with yours, right? Like with mine, it was actually about half that anyway at the peak. So
Yeah.
I think they just in the beginning they just put it out with looser tolerances because they didn't make them yet and they weren't sure really where the statistical spread was going to fall.
Yeah.
And they probably tightened up their processes a little bit, maybe motor manufacturer tighten up their specs where they felt confident enough to have the periodic error because that's kind of where they run anyway.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't feel
That makes
slight
me feel a little
about
better.
that.
I'll tell myself that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's this is my story. I'm sticking with it.
I
That's
like
what I'm
it.
telling myself.
Cool. Thanks so much, Tom. And well, we got a lot of people showed up. It was quiet starting out. And I guess I want to introduce one more new full person, Richard. It's your first time joining tonight, I believe. Do you want to say
Yes.
hi?
Well, again, I had gotten that telescope from a friend while I was up in Rochester, and of course that meant I was working for Eastman Kodak. So I had a love of photography that I shared with him and really got into it. When digital photography took all the Kodak jobs, I went into teaching, and probably most significantly, I was teaching a group of veterans down at University of Pennsylvania. And I included a segment on astronomy, so I got to share my appreciation with them. We also got to, though there's a heck of a lot of light pollution down at University of Pennsylvania, we did get to use the telescopes on the roof. I've also been a good friend of Derek Pitts down at the Franklin Institute, so I've been down there with him. So I've kind of got a cross between a love of astronomy and also trying to dabble a little bit more in astrophotography. So I'm looking to possibly pick up a mount for my camera, since I'm not certain that the tripod, the telescope would handle that. But I'm looking for a good dark sight and some help on best choice of lenses. I got a Canon R5, so I'm okay there. But I'm looking at the that Green Lane Red Trail is only about 30 miles away. So maybe when the new moon comes around, if there's no snow on the ground, I'll make a trip up there.
That's the
Would it
spirit.
be possible to, what would it take for what? Yeah. Uh, do you have to show a membership ID to be able to be there at Valley Forge Lake? Or are they just going to kick you out regardless?
Hold on. Valley Forge?
Yes.
So yeah, for Valley Forge, it's only on when the club is doing their star parties, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
That's
So
correct.
you'd have to come to one of the official star parties, and we still have to be out by 11 p.m. So
Yeah.
even with our piece of paper, it's not the whole night. But
Yeah, I can testify to that. Valley Forge is a pain in the butt. But Green Lane, they accept me at Green Lane. So
even
you
Doug,
should
dude, don't kick
be
Doug
good to
out at
go.
Green Lane. So yeah, Green Lanes are convenient, the most convenient in terms of you don't have to plan. If you just look at the weather and it's good enough and you feel like going, you can show up. We've had pretty good luck at the Green Lane, the Red Trail parking. So
Okay.
Later on in the spring, at the end of, I think it's the 23rd of April or so, or 24th. It's several nights. I think it's 4 nights. The club has planned a trip out to the Cherry Springs area. And we stay at the Big Dipper Lodge. And there's big fields for camping. And there's a lodge with a couple of rooms in it. And across the street, there's a Little Dipper Lodge, which has several rooms in it. And it's a very dark site. It's about a quarter mile from Cherry Springs State Park. And that's very dark skies. So you can think about that in the future in the spring, but um, it's the darkest site in Pennsylvania, probably,
Right.
or one of the darkest for sure.
sweet. And yeah, I think I already mentioned to Tom, but we might have some coming up. We have a few like workshops for getting into some of this stuff. In the past, we've done work with star trackers. So if you wanted to mount your camera, Richard,
Yes.
on some kind of a star tracker. The club has one for rent, I believe, as well.
Okay.
So there's a few ways. There's definitely information and some resources available for that.
I was looking at one from Ioptron, I think it's called.
Hmm. Yeah, they definitely carry the Sky trackers. They're going to be a lot less expensive than the full-on
Yes.
mount, but it's definitely it's a accessible way to get into it.
You can find a lot of used ones on like Astromart or Cloudy Nights.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Richard, if you're interested in trying one out, just contact me and I might be able to help.
Okay.
Okay.
yeah, Richard. I mean, if you're um, if you're interested in lenses, there's always basically the world famous Canon f2.8 200 millimeter prime lens. Lots of people use it. I have one. You can put it on your Canon, and if you decide to go to a dedicated Astro camera, you can buy an adapter. So,
Okay. I have a 150 to 600.
yeah. Give it a go.
Yep.
That might be a little tricky there for the first time.
Yeah.
Everything will be dark. You want to try the moon with that? That's a great place to start
Yes.
with the 150 to 600. But yeah, the Green Lane spot is probably the best one that's close by. Then we have the Hickory Run spot, which is a little bit darker, and we go up there in groups usually. But that is quite a bit farther. It's, I think, 2 exits past the Allentown exit on the 476.
Right.
Yeah, but you're in the right place. Guys, I was hoping, it's completely up to you, but I was wondering if you guys wanted to go over some processing from the data that we got from Agapios's workshop on Saturday. Is that too much to do, you think, tonight, or would you rather discuss something else?
I'm game for that. I thought that that session was great with Gapios. It's pretty quality stuff too. I haven't downloaded anything, but
We also Agapios has invited us over more than once, but I know we have some interest of going over there. Brett emailed me saying that he would be interested in making a group trip over there. I did send a message to everybody on the groups.io chat. Maybe we could discuss it on Friday to see how many people are interested. I don't know if this year is a possibility for me, but that's not to stop any of you guys. It's not the cheapest trip, but it is a beautiful island. And if you guys can wait for me to go, I can be your translator. And I'll tell you what you want to watch out for the Greek taxi drivers. They will they'll try to swindle you.
Oh, Lou, say something in Greek.
Skatasta mutrasu.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's an insult.
Oh,
And
thank you.
But it sounded good anyway.
We're live on,
same to you.
we're live on YouTube. I was going to mention something, but I'll wait till we're not live.
Whatever it is you said.
Well, I mean, there was something else that was quite a bit funny when Agapios pronounced the little village where the telescope resides. It sounds a lot like. Well, I won't say anything until we're not recording anymore.
You don't want to get demonetized.
Yeah, Agapios he's pretty well established there for a planetary imager, and one of the advantages he has, the seeing is consistently well, and now that they have, they built a new observatory. It's high on top of the mountain, so the seeing is even better than it was when he had previous workshops from his backyard, because he would be on the wrong side of the mountain, so there would be some turbulence. But at the top of the mountain, it's crystal clear. But he was also mentioning that you can go skiing at on the mountain during the daytime, and then go down in the morning, and then walk down to the beach and swimming in the afternoon. There's such a variability in temperature there, but if we plan a trip, I think we should avoid the summertime, because he mentioned that it does get up to 45 degrees Celsius, which I don't know how common air conditioners are over there, but it is a dry heat, but 45 degrees is, what's that, like 110? It's ridiculously hot. And anyway, he also recently signed up for groups.io. So if you have any questions for planetary imaging, I think the first guy you should go to here would be Tom in Alaska. He's our local expert. And if there's something Tom doesn't know, which is unlikely, but copy this.
Well, there's a few of us who are pretty good here. Joe's good, Gary's good, planetary. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you're in the right place. And that's a great place to start with planetary imaging. I think it's easier than deep sky. When you're, and you want to make sure that when you're talking about mounts, that you don't get an alt as a mount. You want to focus on a equatorial mount. It just is that much better. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. So let me know if you guys want to look at the data. I'll show you what I've gotten so far with Mars.
Do we want to like mark out some time to do that and then maybe have just a little more chat? I do know Brett probably had a few things to talk about. He's getting all ready to go on his trip. And I did at least want to say one thing to Brett, but
What's that? What's that, John?
in
I
my
don't know.
email, I was like, no filter, no filter. When I say no filter, that means UV IR cut filter.
Right.
I just wanted to double check I was communicating properly.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that we have to get into the all that I got planned tonight, John, with the whole group, unless you are compelled to have me talk about it. But Gary did respond. Thanks, Gary. He responded to the email earlier tonight, and maybe for right now, the three of us chat. You guys have been very helpful, and as we get a little closer, decide how you want to proceed with what I'm doing with the group.
Gentlemen, it's been good talking to you. I'm going to try to make the Friday meeting, but I'm going to sign out for right now. Good talking to you. I've gotten a lot of the notes from the chat, so I look forward to meeting all of you personally.
Okay.
Take care.
Take
You
care.
too, Richard.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Appreciate it.
See you
See you.
Friday.
See you later.
But hey, John, but I still like Lou said, I'm still up for organizing a trip to Cyprus.
You
So
guys are
what time frame were you looking at?
I don't know. I have a couple trips planned in next year in 2025, but if I'm not going somewhere, I'm game. How about you?
I can't go this year. I need a knee surgery. I got to get a total knee replacement. So
You mean in 2025, right?
I'm sorry, 2025. Did I say 23? Wow, don't get old. Yeah, so 2026 is more likely for me. I just need to get past the surgery, and I want to make sure that I could, get around as much as I need to, climbing up and down those mountains, in Cyprus.
How does this group go about presenting this to the general meeting, or what's the protocol for moving something like this along?
We have a camping czar. That who is it? Bill McGinney, guys.
Bill McGeady.
Yeah.
So I guess we would have to discuss it with him because he organizes our trips to Cherry Springs and any other
Might
club.
be a little out of what he was typically thinking, but
I agree. I mean, this is something we can also do amongst ourselves.
Is there anything you'd like I could do now, Lou?
Pay for everybody's trip.
Yes.
Short of paying for everybody's trip, is there anything that I could do?
I think we would have to coordinate with Agapios. I want to figure out what the best time of year to go over there, because Agapios was mentioning that once in a while they have, the dust storms from the Sahara infiltrate the skies over there in Cyprus. So we want to make sure we select a time of year when that's least likely to happen. That would really stink if we were, spend all that money to go out there and then we wouldn't be able to see anything. So I don't know if that's the spring or the fall. And like I said, I don't know if the summertime is really wise, just because it does get really hot. Up on the mountain, it's not hot, but, we're only going to be on the mountain at nighttime. I don't know what accommodations the village has. And I'm assuming that you guys would want to go travel and see the beaches and cities and, the scenery. It's something we need to brainstorm and discuss.
That's why it's good, Lou. I think we do wait till your knee's better, because then we have plenty of time to plan this out and kind of make sure we get people definitely committed to it or whatnot. I already got the okay from the boss,
You
namely
did?
my wife.
Oh, great.
She said she'd love to go to see Greece.
Yeah, it's expensive though. I'm thinking it'll probably be, I don't know, maybe a $2,000 round trip airfare.
Yeah, it's only money. You can't use it after you're dead anyway, so might as well blow it while you're alive.
I suppose that's one way to look at it.
I will go.
All right, so we have three people between me and my wife. That's five. I can't go without her. She would kick my rear end.
Well, maybe I can bring my wife too. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, because my wife, the only thing, the problem she has with astronomy, she loves all you guys except that she doesn't like that it's at night.
Yeah.
The women can have their own parties.
Exactly.
You do solar astronomy.
There you go. But, I think it'd be a great educational experience for all of us. And he's got, Agapios he runs all the observatories on the island, and he's got access to more than just the one we were, that we saw on Saturday. I think I remember Mark Ferrari was talking to him about it last time. But at any rate, it's up to you guys. I mean, I would love to go. I have relatives that I haven't seen, and they're up my butt to come and visit. So, I have no excuse, as Agapios keeps reminding me.
So does he have a hotel he runs there?
Yeah, we can sleep in the observatory.
Oh, cool.
No, and that's the other thing. We have to figure out what the cost is going to be. And it all depends on what the currency conversion is there from euro to US dollars. I remember when I was in Greece like 20 years ago, they didn't convert back to they were still on the drachma. They weren't on the euro, and gosh, everything was so inexpensive. Everything was so cheap. I was on the most beautiful island, a beautiful beach, and I bought a pina colada, and it was like 350 drachmas. 450 was $1, and all I had was $1,000 bill there. So they don't. I didn't realize they don't tip over there. So I gave the waitress $1,000 or 1,000 drachmas. It was like 75 cents. And the instant she heard the straw going, she was right there with another one. I didn't need another one. I just wanted to sleep on the beach. And that's what they do. They sleep on the beach and they party all night. I mean, we're not that young anymore, so I don't know how much we can tolerate. But, it's just something to think about, guys. So I don't know if I'll be able to make the meeting on Friday. If I do, I will bring it up. But if not, somebody should bring it up and mention something to Bill. And this is probably a good idea for any member. You don't have to be an astrophotographer. This would be great for any club member to go to, because visual observation is great there as well. I don't think we'd want to bring any gear that far either. I mean, I certainly wouldn't. But we can also discuss with him if there's gear rental or You know, I don't know what other options are available.
It'd be nice if maybe, you have a DSLR you can just, put on the back of an available scope over there.
Right, yeah, you shouldn't go without your camera.
Right.
Even just a wide angle 14 millimeter or 35 millimeter lens would work. And like I said, depending on the time of year, if we get if you have a 200 millimeter lens, it you can get pretty good data on Andromeda, provided you could find it. But it would be great if you just piggyback the telescope on the back of the camera on the back of a telescope.
I looked at Google in April, like 2 weeks stay in a hotel is less than $500. Nice beach
Really?
hotel. So I'm sure it can be dirt cheap, except the flight.
Yeah, that's promising. So
I
how
mean,
much is
I just picked some random 2 weeks in April. It's 14 to 28 or something.
how much is their airfare?
Probably a couple $1,000 round trip.
Yeah, I looked that up.
And we could, if you get a VPN and buy the airfare from a server in Greece, you might get a better deal than buying it from here.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be more expensive than just going to a hotel in Florida or whatever.
Right. Well, that's something we can think about, and it is, a couple years away, but we don't want to wait till the last minute either. But perhaps we should figure out the best time of year.
If we get a whole bunch of us, we can get an agent to arrange the whole thing.
Yeah,
Just show up.
and we can get a group discount if we.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe that kind of lead time.
Yeah. Do you think we have 10 people? I mean, that would be great if we can get 10 people together.
That's Friday. I bet no problem. It's a nice place from looking from a satellite.
Yeah.
And the location. So.
And the other issue is I won't be able to stay for more than a week just because I don't know how much vacation time my wife has and how much time I would have available to me. But yeah, we'll bring it up on Friday, I guess.
Or just send an email.
Yeah, I did send Agapios an email, but he hasn't replied. If we, it might have got lost in the thread there. There was a lot of replies to that.
Yeah, he might know an agent over there. Surely it's full of tourists.
Yeah.
Well, I sent Agapios a thank you email and I got a response back, and I did mention that you were talking about us going over there, and he said that he's been bothering you for years to do that.
Yeah, the problem is, it costs money.
Yeah.
If you can bother me with the paying for the trip, that way I'd be there tomorrow.
Just that.
But I was going to say that's another reason for giving us plenty of time, because then people can save up for it, and put away, and then it's not going to have as big an impact on their wallet. Maybe if you try to do it shorter notice.
Yeah, exactly. What else are you gonna do with your RMD money? Can give it away or enjoy it.
Right. Well, I'm still collecting money for retirement, so.
Okay, well, some of us anyway, probably. Just looking at the pictures on the screen.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. And the one thing you actually don't really have to worry about is that's the one island in Greece that everybody knows English because it used to be a British colony. So even though, okay, I could translate it, I don't know how necessary that is. I mean, Agapios' English is better than mine. I mean,
So I have an astrophotography question. Is that okay to ask?
Go right ahead, man.
So Joe lent me the Sea Star, and I used it for a few nights. And one night I turned on uh, the advanced option to capture all the images, all the fit files. I have zillions of fit files, and I try to figure out what to do with them because of the rotation. How does that? How do you process that if you want to do it on your own? Can you give me some pointers?
What was your total time, Tom, that you took for an object?
It was probably like 2 hours.
Yeah.
An hour and a half, something like that. Oh, yeah. I tried to
Yeah.
stack them in some way. Probably didn't click the right option. There was a lot of rotation in image. It just
Yeah. After about
M42.
an hour, it begins to get pretty noticeable. They say, yes, ZWO says to kind of stay away from the meridian, which is kind of the opposite. If you're a planetary photographer, you always want to be close to the meridian if your focus object's the highest, but you have the most rotation type of thing. You
But
think of Orion, and how
how does the internal software account for the rotation? Because you
it
get raw
no
images, so rotate them
no
yourself.
it doesn't really, and that's an issue. There was hoped. I mean, what people have done is they've mounted it on an equatorial mount, or an actually, if they put it on, if you put it on a mount that is aimed at instead of aiming straight up, it aims towards like Polaris. Um, People have taken some images there and it tracks pretty well. The downside is the C-Star has software built in where it won't let you aim it below the horizon. So now your horizon is the equator. The celestial equator is your new horizon. So anything in the southern part of the sky, you won't be able to photograph. But it's a northern part of the sky. Uh, you'll be able to take long exposure without the field rotation because as it's moving, you're at that angle so that you won't have a field rotation. There was a YouTube. There's a fellow which you probably have seen, or perhaps you haven't, but he's called the Lazy Geek,
Oh,
Keeve. He's if you look him up on just put down like Lazy Geek, and he's all these different YouTube videos. He's a really good guy. He lives in Japan and
Yeah,
photographs from
yeah.
the top of a rooftop. Anyway, he has
Oh, I've
very
seen it.
interesting videos, and he has one where he took a sea star and mounted it at his latitude, basically, and then tracked and talked about it. I
Well,
know.
I guess maybe I'm not getting the answer. If you let the C star do its own thing and it takes exposures and fix it all up and you get one picture, that's it. But if you uh, get every single fit file, you have hundreds of files, there's got to be some way to use them, right? To process it on your own to make it even a better image than the C star does on its own. I thought that was the purpose of spitting out all these files, that you can do that. And so
Well, you can, I mean, and you could do that, but really the difference is in the stacking. But your images are still going to be the individual images will be rotated, so you'll keep getting the pure field of view will get smaller and smaller, the part that's not rotated out. Because with each frame, um, it's going to be, it's just going to be, you're going to miss the corners. You're going to miss two corners will start to go away on you. And up to about an hour, you're okay. What you could try to do,
I mean,
if you
I
want
can
to do
cut.
it longer, you could do this over several nights. You could do it like, say you did it at 9 o'clock at night. You're photographing an object and you do it for an hour. Then you stop with that object. The next night, go out and do this at the same time. You have to go out there. So the field rotation would be similar and then do another hour. And you can do those on several nights and combine all that integration time together. So if you did 3 or 4 nights, you get 3 or 4 hours. But
Well,
your field rotation is you're not chopping off all the edges.
I have
well,
a question.
this was M42 that yeah, I took the Sea Star one time near Boston and the Bandarki area in 60 minutes. M42 was completely overexposed, so I left it for 1 hour and I can just throw away as many fit files as I need to. But I was just curious to how you actually go about processing it on your own. I
What
try to put
software are
this.
you using? Are
I
you
was
using
using
Cyril?
Cyril. Cyril,
Great.
yeah.
So in Cyril, you can do something called a two-pass um, sequence registration. So the idea is, so if it's like this when you start and then it's like this at the end,
Yeah.
you have to pick a frame kind of in the middle as a reference frame for the most overlapping stars from this and this. And then,
That's what I was thinking, because that's got to have some kind of reference to which to compare, and I didn't check it, but wasn't sure. Okay.
yeah, you
That
can
makes
pick a reference frame from the middle of the sequence. You'll get more overlap. And then for the do a 2-pass registration, and you want to probably use Lenkos for your as opposed to just shifting pixels, you can do interpolation. It's a more expensive interpolation, but
Okay.
it'll kind of rotate the image. You'll still only have, as Tom was saying, the usable stuff will be in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. But just the stars were not lined up, and it was just a blur, even in the middle. So
I don't think D. Scott McKenzie is on this call, but he found some serial scripts specific for the S50, and he was asking me about improving those scripts.
okay,
He's interested in exactly what you're talking about, D. Scott McKenzie.
okay, I'll look for him.
And
I mean, otherwise, the telescope is great, and maybe I'll get one. But I thought, okay, let's try this option. Then I didn't know what to do with it. But I gotta look at some YouTube, so maybe we can talk. But I was thinking about the reference, because like, how would it know which one is the right one to use? And I remember there's some guy, I was watching his YouTube video, and he was picking up the reference. It was not 3C star, and I thought, like, why do you pick a reference? He sounded like quite arbitrary pick. Because there's hundreds of those he had, and he just picked one and went on. So maybe that I can try it again. I saved the files, so play with them later one day. Just curious, see what I was doing wrong.
Hey Tom, have you tried using the C Star on a wedge or an equatorial mount? I mean, I've watched that video that Lazy Geek put out. I was just curious if anybody actually has a practical experience with it, because
I have not tried it.
yeah, because I can't get more than about an hour, and it quits. I mean, I just assume that's because of the field rotation. I get to about 55 minutes or so, and it just says, stack failed, and I maybe get one frame out of every, two like 10 or so, and then I just give up and call that a night. Let that be one session.
I saw that too, where fail. Okay, I was getting fails.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
restarted.
I've noticed, at least with my experience so far, if I don't save the individual frames, I have the rate of failing is much lower. And when I say save all the frames, it seems to drop more frames. I mean, it seems to drop quite a number of frames actually. Now they say, if it's windy and all this kind of stuff, but it just seems like if I'm saving all the frames, which doesn't make much sense because it's just stacking them and saving them wouldn't do anything. But it seems like it gives me the illusion anyway that I'm dropping more frames when I say save all. And I'm not sure why.
Can the C Star be taking pictures without tracking? Can that be turned on like that?
What do you mean?
Well, I could set it on my equatorial platform and let it go for half an hour, see what happens. Then I would get I wouldn't get any field.
I don't know. I mean, that's a curious
I wouldn't get any field rotation that way.
Yeah, I wonder if you could just turn off the.
Well, Tom, maybe there's a couple of solutions to that. Does the C Star track in right ascension only?
No, it's an out as.
Oh, okay. All right. So I thought if it tracked in right ascension only, you could place it on some kind of rotating platform. But if that's not the problem, well, how about a small army? You only give it like 15 or 20 minutes or up to an hour, but you have a small army of C Stars.
I tried that.
And you could, if you had like 10 or 20 of them, you could get a massive amount of exposure time.
Oh, you can network them.
A C Star array.
I tried that with two, with mixed results. Ended up selling the one, but it was only two.
Well, that was a good.
I didn't invest in 10.
I've thought about that. I thought, I have an equatorial mount, but I thought if people got bored with the Sea Star, maybe I could pick up a bunch of them on eBay and make an array out of it.
I've seen a video when some guy put it on equatorial mount and somehow fooled the Sea Star into thinking that it's doing this regular job. But then other people are saying that's not recommended because the gears are plastic, and then if you have it at an angle like that, it puts extra stress on the gear. You'll wear it out. Which I don't know if that's true, but it looked like a complicated process. And that takes away the beauty of the Sea Star. You just turn
Yeah,
it on.
right. You start
You
getting
turn it
more
on, push the button, you get a beer, go inside the house, and just let it go, you know.
Yeah, that's
When
true.
I borrowed it, 10 minutes later after I turned it on, I left it out in my back patio, and I went inside and watched it on the iPad and went on watched television, and 1 hour I had Andromeda, and it was nice. I think that's the beauty, to show other people or kids might be interested in astronomy when you have it that simple. Yeah, so anyway, it has a place, I think.
I emailed you, Tom, with the to make the connection with the other guy.
Okay, thanks.
He has some
Can I-
scripts, but
Can I throw out a question to the group? I've been looking more into, which is the best filters to use with a color CMOS camera. And, the more I read, the more confused I kind of get. I know that there's recommendations for doing broadband objects, and then, other objects you use different filters. So I just was wondering what people's recommendations were on that, or have any experience with it, like, the oblong, L enhanced versus the L extreme versus, the ultra, and that kind of stuff.
Sandy, I think High Point just had a sale on the Optron filters.
Yeah, it was like 20% off. I bought the a broadband one because I read for that, and that's supposedly, if you like to, you want to do galaxy imaging or stuff like that, that's pretty good, and it wasn't that expensive, so I figured, okay, I'll give that a shot. But you get to the fancier ones, you're going up in more money. So before I, pardon my expression, piss away, that much money, want to have a better idea what I'm getting for it.
What type of objects are you looking to shoot,
Well,
Sandy?
again, I like to do, anything I can. Like, they said let's say you're going to do more, nebulous type things. And the dual band filters, they recommend for using with those. Like that's what the, like they like what the L extreme and the L enhance are for doing that kind of stuff. I mean, down in Chiefland, I imaged through an 11-inch Schmidt Cassiger, and then up north I have a 14 that I do. So I think probably because down in Chiefland, the skies are pretty darn dark. So the filter's probably not going to get me that much more. But up here, where I am, it's probably Bortle 5 or 6 skies I'm looking at from my observing site.
Yeah, I mean, they are useful. They're definitely useful. For, nebulosity and stuff, the dual bands work really well with a one-shot color camera. I probably have a similar light pollution to what you're talking about. And I was always amazed how much I could pull out with something like the Sol Nebula or the Heart Nebula, something or like the Rosette, something with a lot of nebulosity with those dual band filters. It's quite impressive how much it'll suppress the light pollution in the area. But for galaxies, I do think you want something like the one you got, that does broadband stuff, because that like one of the quad band filters or like the light pollution suppression filters. Otherwise, you can get a lot of color casts, like color shifts that are hard to kind of hard to deal with, even with color calibration. It works to a certain extent, the color calibration, but it's, if there's not a full spectrum of color, then it's kind of, it doesn't have real data to work with.
The old garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent. I mean, it's still, like that thing you did recently, Doug, with the substituting the green channel, right? Or you had data that was not good, and you on the mono, and you wound up substituting one of the channels. That worked quite well. So I think there's a lot of latitude in terms of what you can get away with, especially with the processing tools now with color calibration. But having like a couple filters, I find is really good. Like having a dual band for nebulosity, especially if I'm shooting wider field. I kind of really like the dual band, and then using the quad band for galaxies or star clusters, things like that.
Right. And that's kind of the direction I'm aiming at. It's just with the dual band, you get so many choices from other different manufacturers, and Oplong they say is good. For instance, what I read is like the L enhanced. I forget what the term is, but the bandwidth I think is the thing they talk about.
Yeah.
Like an L enhanced has a larger bandwidth. So, but if you go to things that have smaller, there's benefits, but some of these things they're talking about that you get some things around halos around the stars.
Right.
Also, so you got to be careful about that. And I know for processing, to some degree, you probably can, do that. So I'm trying to find the middle ground.
Yeah.
What's not going to get me the halos, but yet get me the benefit of the dual band.
Yeah, some of them have the early Optolong used to have a problem with bright stars with halos, especially the L Extreme. Like the narrower the bandwidth, the more likely it was to cause that effect, that halo effect. And while you can deal with a certain amount of it in post-processing, it's better to not have it, and like by far better to not have it to start with, because it takes a lot of extra time. And I saw some tutorials of people working on like the bright stars individually to like fix them, and that's a lot of work. They did, from what I've heard, I think they've improved their technology, where that problem that they had with the halos is reduced now, from what I've heard. I actually went with a different dual band filter by a company called Hutech. It's IDAS, the three letters IDAS.
Okay, I've seen the IDAS.
Yeah, because they had a special polishing. They had found that the halos were caused by the glass not being as polished as it should have been, I guess, or it could have been. And so they had a slightly wider bandwidth. They were more like the L enhanced in terms of bandwidth, but still no halos, even with bright stars. So for me, that was like a deciding factor, because I didn't want to deal with halos. But from what I've heard, I believe that problem is less now, but you'd want to research that. That's just kind of anecdotal.
When you start looking at all this stuff on the web and looking at some of the YouTube things, I mean, your head can start to spin.
Oh yeah, there's so many different opinions, and I from practical experience, I've been using that IDAS one for a couple years now, and I've shot stuff with very bright open clusters in the center, like a fair amount of nebulosity. Well, look at the rosette, right? The open cluster in the rosette is really bright with no issue whatsoever. Not even a hint of any halos.
Okay, well, that's helpful. I appreciate that, Gary.
You're welcome. The dual band I went with was the Optolong, and part of that was because I heard that they had gotten rid of the halo problem, and even though that particular dual band filter wasn't reported to have it because it really hadn't come out yet. It's that L quad enhance, I think it's called. We talked about it at the last meeting briefly, and I haven't seen any issues with that either.
Yeah,
And
well,
that is Optolong, which was a company that, reportedly had some issues with their
now
narrow stuff.
that was the one for the broadband stuff, right?
Correct.
Because that's the one that I did get.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so yeah, that one I when I researched, I said, well, I think that's right for the broadband stuff. Now it's looking at the dual band one, which way to go.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think you'll be happy with that quad band. I wind up leaving it on a lot because especially when I'm shooting here, shooting at home in skies like you're talking about.
Yeah, I just also wound up just getting. I was going to try to use one of the filter drawer things, and I said, "How the hell with it?" And I wound up getting the filter wheel, just so
Okay.
make it easier, just to switch things around.
Yeah, you probably went the right. John and I took the other approach, and we wound up buying so many little filter drawers that we could have bought a filter wheel.
I
But
went down both roads. I just threw all my money at it.
Well, the thing is, when I was trying to figure out the spacing with the 2600 using the filter drawer, it just didn't, things just didn't work out. And so I just said, screw it. And I'm spinning my wheels though over nothing. And like you said, then if you wind up getting the extra, little drawers and stuff like that, and how much you wind up saving in the end.
right, exactly.
And then I just have Nina change everything when I need to have a change. That's all.
Yeah, that is convenient. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But well, I
Just
appreciate
curious,
it.
do you guys all use 2-inch filters or 1.25-inch filters?
Depends on the camera you use.
Okay.
Yeah, for like planetary stuff, the imaging sensors are much smaller, so going with an 1.25 filter usually works fine. With your something like a APS-C sensor, like one of the crop size sensors on a DSLR or on a dedicated astronomical camera, you'd want to go with a bigger filter, probably 36 millimeter minimum for those. But typically I've been getting 2-inch just because it's universal. If I ever go full frame, like if I'm using a DSLR full frame, or if I ever graduate up to a full frame astronomical camera, then there won't be any issues. Yeah, like I think if I looked into monochrome recently, like about 6 or 8 months ago. I didn't do anything with it, and for that I was looking at one of the crop sensors, and because the filters, like a filter set, is so expensive for like if I got RGB, H alpha, sulfur oxygen kind of set, like those 7 filter sets, I was thinking I'd probably go with the 36 millimeter filter wheel. It's a little bit smaller and lighter, and I would just get the 36 millimeter unmounted filters because it would fit the image circle, without breaking the bank. Because some of those filter sets can get like crazy expensive. They're more than, comparable to the price of the camera for some of the filter sets. And they're not cheap cameras, monochrome APS-C sensor sized cameras.
When I started out with my SBIG camera, it was mono with a filter wheel using the RGB and then H alpha. And what always would happen is, I'd get some of my data on the other things, and then it would switch to, the H alpha thing. I'd lose my guide star. It just got to be too frustrating. And I said, when I changed over the one-shot color, maybe I'm not a purist doing it, but it so makes life so much easier.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why I'm still doing it, because it just makes it easy, much, much easier. I do think it'd be nice. I think the thing that makes me think about monochrome still is just like getting a good like H alpha data, where you have a higher pixel density of just, the same color pixels rather than the Bayer mask. And then you could get some really good hydrogen alpha data to, use as an overlay kind of, because if you look at a lot of the really good wideband like RGB color images, a lot of them, it's RGB H alpha.
Right.
You know, if you look at stuff people publishes, but stuff that people publish that is really, you know, striking. It's a lot of it's RGB H alpha.
Yeah, I used to use the H alpha as my luminance channel.
Right.
For that particular reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for I still stink at processing. So I've gotten better with image acquisitions, and I have all this tons of data that I've only somewhat attempted to process. What I keep saying, one day.
Hmm. Yeah. Does anyone have any images here? I mean, it's assuming we're done, you know, or chatting.
I'm actually trying to find the Mars that I processed. What I did was I used the auto stacker and then the wavelets, and then I finished it off with Lightroom to get the. For some reason, the color didn't come out as pronounced as Agapios' image. I'm really rusty. I couldn't get close this time around. No one has tried processing that data yet, have they?
I haven't. I downloaded it. I wasn't able to attend the session, but I saw his link and it asked for like to send an email to him for permission, so I did that, and then it came in like late last night, so he must have gotten up early or something with the time difference. But I downloaded it, but haven't done anything. I did look at just the video files just to see kind of like how good the seeing was to start with, and it seemed noticeably better when he was acquiring the Jupiter data. At least he said he was going to put like, you know, the best or one of the best video files in there. So that was kind of, I guess, as good as it got. And that looked pretty good. Like even the individual frames look much better than a lot of what I've ever seen with the seeing here. But Mars wasn't that. Mars was jumping around a lot. It was really dancing a lot. And then I know from what I watched the replay of the thing, and he said that clouds were coming in and stuff like that. So maybe it got more turbulent by the time he switched over to Mars. But even that, I still think he does an amazing job processing, because he's able to pull out, like he when he's using Registax and, you know, just kind of sliding over. That's the same technique that I use and most people use, kind of thing. Yet his seemed to come out really good. So there's
Yeah.
some magic. There's some magic that isn't being said, or there's some magic in some other tools or something, or in his
One
eyes.
ingredient missing.
I tell you. I
Well,
mean, I looked at that finished image, and it really looks great.
Well, one thing that when I
Jupiter
asked him
image.
during the thing is, his routine that he goes with when he's using the wavelets. And it's actually kind of interesting. We starts at that level 3, because I didn't realize it, because, with Registack, I just kind of played around and said, okay, that's looking better. And then you move on to another one. But there is some method to the madness in using those things.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
You know, one of the things that I noticed was when his images come out of AutoStacker, they are really, really very good. I mean, they look much better than I think most that I see. You know, I mean, I think his methods are great, no doubt about it. But I think that he's starting out with really good data, you know, and I think, like, if you don't look really close at AutoStacker, you don't see it. But his images coming out of AutoStacker are the images that I get out of Registax on a bad night, you know, and you know. So I think one of the things is he's starting, like, if you look at what he starts with out of AutoStacker, I think it's really quite good, you
Yeah,
know.
the TIFF
And
file
that's not
coming
in any
out
way
is
to diminish his skill. He is really excellent. But
Yeah,
But
I've
then
even
seeing is
tried
good
tricks
too.
like reducing the percentage. Now, obviously, you're fighting noise. The fewer images you have, statistically, the higher the noise floor. But even going to like he was using 25%, right, on those stacks out of auto stacker. And I've tried, there was a couple nights where it was, things were bright. It was a bright acquisition, so I was able to get like, 120 frames a second or something like that. And I tried like 15% to only pick like the cream of the crop.
Right.
And I still struggle getting the detail that he's able to pull out. So I do think you're right. I do think his methodology plus just inherently good seeing
Yeah,
help.
seeing's a big deal.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
great.
that looks great, Lou.
Not as good as his.
Ah,
Still,
I think you're shortchanging yourself.
I'm just trying to find. I put them all in a folder, and I don't see where I put the folder. Um, but anyway, one thing I've noticed is there's a halo around here. I can't seem to get rid of. I don't know where the halo came from. If you guys
That's a common type of artifact with Mars, with all the planets really, but really Mars is the one that shows it. And there's I think Dick Steinberg said something about a couple of years ago when we were doing Mars pictures, and I started researching it, and it's actually an optical thing. Not a lot you can do about it. But Mars seems to be the biggest culprit. I know I have the same thing when I take pictures of Mars. I have the side that isn't where that's the away from the shadow because it's about 92% right now illuminated. The brighter side has an arc.
What do you mean by optical?
It's we were going through some. I forget the exact. It's a couple years ago, but I know that it wasn't like it wasn't. He was trying to differentiate whether it was a post processing artifact being put in, or it was the raw data actually had it that was hitting the camera. And it goes back to the raw data. It's nothing that gets put in into the post processing. So I kind of felt better about that when you think it's okay. I'm not going to worry about that versus trying to come around and compensate. I think people have tried different things to get rid of it, and with greater or lesser degree of success. But I believe the end result was it was not a not a processing problem.
I guess you could mask it, right? I mean, it's outside the area of interest.
Yeah, you could fool around, but I mean, then you start getting into that funny world.
Right, sure, yeah.
But yeah, but
Yeah,
I
I
know what
think,
you mean though.
yeah,
Yeah, you could put a mask on there probably and bring it down at least,
yeah, put a
minimize
mask
it.
and then change the black point or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Do like a sort of a fuzzy circle mask and then change the black point. I mean, I
well,
guess you
Hey,
could use
Lou.
the clone, the clone stamp
Excuse
or
me.
something, but I'm not suggesting that necessarily.
yeah, his image, the orange came out more orange, and I can't seem to get it as sharp. I mean, look how blurry that is. I can't seem to get it as sharp as he does. If you go to the groups.io chat, then you can look at his and compare. It is like 10 or 50 times better than this image. But who was asking about Green Lane to go observe from there?
I believe Richard, he hopped off earlier though.
Oh, all right. I was just going to show um, what the seeing is like. I'm not what the seeing, what the how dark the sky is. Like here's like the cocoon um, from my backyard, which is 400 yards from the observing site. But I mean, John and Doug have been able to pull out some pretty amazing images from that site. So whether it or not it's worth it to drive all the way up to Hickory Run, unless you're going to Cherry Springs. I mean, Gary, your image of the Vale was phenomenal. You know, there's no way you can get that data from here. I think you compared it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah. And that was from Frank's. I had some from here and some from Frank's, and then the Cherry Springs thing. I think it's a matter of how much time you expose for. I mean, if you know, it's that thing that we had talked about a handful of months ago of that if you have it was that analysis Jerry Rodriguez had done that I had talked about and showed a couple little tables where, you know, every magnitude of sky, right? A magnitude is roughly 2.5 to 1. Just off the cuff, you're looking at, if you're at a site that's 1 magnitude darker, then you could go with, you know, less than half the number of exposures for the same signal to noise ratio. So, or if you think about it the other way, every magnitude brighter, you need 2.5 times the data,
Right.
just to equal the same signal to noise. You know, all like just off the cuff. Obviously, there's other factors, but so that's a big multiplier if you go to something like Cherry Springs, where it's 3 or 4 magnitudes darker. Right now, it's 2.5 times 2.5 times 2.5 times 2.5.
Right.
So you're like 15 times or whatever that comes out to be, times the exposure time to get equivalent signal to noise ratio.
You like my flat box?
I do.
It just, you know what happens? Every single time a gust of wind comes along and pulls that thing
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's why blue painter's tape is a godsend for astronomers, for astrophotographers, I should say, and even astronomers.
So what I did with this was, rather than using a illuminated panel, this is just a 1/4 inch, what do we call it?
Plexiglass.
Semi-opaque acrylic. That way if it falls, what do I lose? $2, but I have a whole bunch of those. And I usually start at the beginning of the night. And I like that because, if a bird flies over, it doesn't mess up your image. If there's I do have a box that I put these in, except that it fell apart. I got to rebuild it. So I make several layers. I put like 4 of these in a box so that, there's less of a problem if the clouds or birds come and get in the way. Pac-Man. What's the wall? Look at all the too much noise on that. Dan had a good one there with his telescope with this object from Chile. He has his mono camera. The resolution he's able to pull out is pretty amazing. I can't believe this came out with my DSLR. That was a really crappy camera, but like Gary said, a lot of time. That was like 14 hours or 13 hours of data for the horse head. So anyway, does anybody have any pictures they want to share?
I have one Mars picture I can show you.
What is this?
That's a good one.
That's words to
Where
live
was that
by.
taken?
I don't know how I got that.
Can't believe we had to make this sign. That's so honest. That's so good.
Yeah, really? That's great. Oh,
This is from Agapios's telescope. His data. He sent. I think that he might have sent it a few. This was last year when they first set up that telescope. But what I've noticed with his image, you see the white milky area in the center of the M1.
Okay, I was going to ask, is that M1? It's
Yeah,
kind of bright, blown out in the center.
that's if you notice, if you go on Astrobin, half the images are like this and the other half are not. So I don't understand what was going on there. But anyway, okay, let me stop sharing here. All right, who's got the Mars image?
I have one.
Let's take a look. Tom, I'm waiting for more solar images from you.
We'll see what the sun brings. Oh, where am I at here?
I can't get enough of your solar images.
You guys see my screen at all?
Yeah, I see a
Yeah.
folder.
Humming.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, your Mars is better than mine. Look at that.
That's a picture. That's in my backyard with my 10-inch.
That's nice and sharp.
That was a week ago. Actually, a little more than a week ago. That was December 1st. It was 11.7 arc seconds.
Tiny.
Yeah, it is tiny.
So Tom, how difficult is it with your 10-inch to even find Mars and get on it?
Well, what I always do is it was funny because when I watched the Agapios kind of struggle for a second with the 20-inch to get it in the camera, I kind of said, okay, well, that's good. I'm not the only one. But what I do, because I usually just slew to it. And it's the first thing I slew to is a planet. So I'm not going to be within a half a degree probably, or maybe half a degree. So I just throw, I put in, I don't put the camera in, I put a low power eyepiece in and I center it in low power eyepiece. I put the camera in because I'm using planetary cameras. So the field of view isn't huge. I mean, the sensor size isn't huge. And, but I don't use a Barlow or anything because I'm already at 86 inches native with that scope. So I get that in, I center it, and I sync the mount to it, and then I pop in the 2 to 2x Barlow, and then I center that again, and then I slowly crop it down to a reasonable region of interest. But I have one.
What is the mount, Tom?
It's an Ioptron CEM 70.
It's a very nice image, Tom. Ooh, that's even better.
That was the next night. That's Europa, I think, and Jupiter.
That's better
Looks
than
great.
that's better than from Cyprus.
That was well, that was fortunate. Actually, the seeing on this was most of the time was not that good, but there was moments where it's a funny thing. Seeing is everything. I mean, seeing always wins, and
Right.
that's why Agapio says, use the net versus a line because you take a bunch of them. And I actually went back and I have it on here. I can show you the SER file, and it's really pretty good for this area. It's really good. The best night so far, I'd say. Let me open it up and I'll play it. Oh, I can't quite see it. Let me move this.
Yeah, Tom, that auto run feature, I was looking at that. That's a pretty good tip, where he's taking a section and then immediately it kicks into another file. He's taking another section of frames and then another one, and then he's basically picking, okay, this had the best seeing. It's like you don't get all good and then all bad. You get like
yeah.
5 seconds of great, and then 5 seconds of bad, and you know,
Yeah, you can,
and what you got to do is get lucky with
yeah.
the segment
Yeah, and
of
yeah, you can see
good.
it going in and out here too, but
Yeah.
there was enough of moments that's good that were good. Now,
Yeah.
the hardest part when it varies like this is the focusing, of course, right? Because you go to make a tweak, it's a steady period. So you start to tweak it though to make sure you got it the sharpest. And the next thing you know, you're trying to focus this thing, but it may go to a less sharp period. So it looks like you're going out of focus, but in reality, you could be getting better, but the seeing has gotten worse for that 2 seconds. So it's a real I tend to play with the focus probably every 2 or 3 videos. I'll take it. I'll just tweak it again and see if I got it right. And usually, if I shoot 20 videos, one of them is going to be better than the others. But
Yeah,
this is a pretty good night for around here. It's really a good night, actually.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Do you
Tom,
ever
how
use the focuss? Like if you have like in this picture where it's
When I really guess I like to use the really like in the case of Jupiter, I like to use either the poles or the festoons in between the two dark equatorial bands to see if I can get a little more contrast there. But on this night with times, I would just do it on the moon itself, and just I would just play with that. If I really have trouble, I'll do the moon and try to get it where it seems the best. But it's
Yeah.
you're moving this thing probably, a millimeter or so inside out of focus, maybe 2 millimeters, which is a big deal when you're trying to get it when it's really sharp. If you have an eyepiece, looking through an eyepiece, if you moved it, a couple millimeters from right from the really snap-on point, it's not as good.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway,
well, that functionality from the fire capture really helps where it stills up the image.
yeah, I haven't used fire capture. I use sharp cap, but I know that feature existed because he told us about that for the last 4 times, I think. And
Yeah.
this time I actually wrote it down and said, when I go to focus next time, I'm going to bring fire capture up to do my focus. Then I can leave fire capture and go to sharp cap where I'm much more familiar with things and just use sharp cap for that kind of freeze focus business. Now I'm using the focuser is an electric focuser, more or less. It's a electric focuser like thing I'm using. I'm focusing from inside my house, but it's not really something attached directly to the focuser. It's on a little bit of a Rube Goldberg timing belt thing, so I can swap that same motor across different scopes.
So you're not out there, you're in your house.
I'm in my house.
Yeah.
Cold outside.
Yeah, right. I've known,
Tom, I was envisioning like those big rubber gloves that go through the wall.
Yeah, right.
You'd
Yeah.
be doing that,
If it was a little closer, that's what I would do.
Yeah,
you know,
Mike, is that with Tom with the hazmat suit on or not?
Yeah,
exactly.
Hey, Tom, I would be interested in seeing a picture of how you did that focuser because that's something I'm struggling to.
Okay, I actually in
Show
my
some
talk on
pictures.
Friday night, I'm going to show it. I'll have a picture of it because
Okay,
I
good.
go over a couple things because the talk is just on planetary observing and it just goes through, you know, just some of the tools that are available for like sky and telescope, where the moons are going to be when the red spot crosses the meridian, all that kind of stuff, and how you can see what the size of Venus is going to be and what phase it is and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's a couple of nice sites that show you that, and I just go through some really basic stuff there. Then I go through some tools or equipment, and one of them is it's like the I call it quality of life type things. I mean, I was amazed when I first used electric focus. I used it visually, and it was like I should have done this 50 years ago. This is ridiculous. I mean, because whenever I don't care what scope you have, if you touch it at all, it's still going to vibrate a hair. When you're looking at that really, really fine focus on a planet, you kind of move it and you look and say, is that better than I had before? And you're kind of fooling around. But electric focuser, man, it just comes in, just snaps right in there. It's so obvious and easy. It's a real quality of life issue.
Yeah. What's the order of talks? I know I'm doing one.
Bill McGeeney, Jan's going to be away, so I'm going to start up the meeting, just go over some business things. Then Bill McGeeney is going to give his observers talk, which is the highlights of 2025, mainly solar system highlights, but just different things. The sun, talk about auroras, I guess, and Saturn's rings tilting and all that kind of stuff, Mars opposition. Then I'm going to give a thing on, then I'm up next with the planetary observing. And then it is,
Wayne
I
Reed.
think, I can tell you exactly.
Wayne Reed. I got it. I got
You got it?
Yeah, Wayne Reed with solar imaging, white light, H alpha. And then Joe Lamb. Joe was here.
Joe had
Yeah,
to drop.
Joe
Oh,
is
yeah.
doing lucky imaging of the
Lucky
moon.
imaging.
And then you're batting
that.
cleanup, Tom, with beginning planetary photography. Excuse
Oh,
me.
by then everybody will be sleeping or have left.
And you're going to bring your Ponce table, right?
Yeah, I'm
That
bringing
good.
my platform.
Very cool.
That is really cool. And that gives if people who ever thought about planetary but kind of given up or decided not to because they have a job, that may breathe life back into their dreams. Because you brought that to Valley Forge, I guess maybe more than one occasion, but the last star party, I had the pleasure of looking through your scope with that, and it's pretty
Yep.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like your binocular scope, Tom. You still use that thing?
Yeah, yeah. I brought it to Cherry Springs last
Oh,
year,
yeah.
September.
Yeah, that's
The
pretty.
biggest challenge with the binocular scope is that
Collimation.
when you change the interocular, you do it by kind of rotating the tubes because the eyepieces come out. When you do that, the tubes I used were irrigation pipe. I made all the different pieces, and the tubes come from Hastings Irrigation out in Nebraska, and they make irrigation pipes, and they sell the ends to astronomers. And it's about the same wall thickness as you would get with like a Parks aluminum tube or somebody who charges you many, many dollars per feet. The Hastings tubes are 20% that cost. But they kind of little irregularities, or little small things. So when I'm rotating them, it can throw the collimation of the two eyes. Because remember, your binoculars have to come to, so they're both looking at the same exact thing. So every time you change the interocular, you got to fool with the collimation knobs, which if somebody is new coming to it and wants to look through it, they can move it to so the eyes are good, but now the collimation's off and they don't know how to adjust it necessarily. And if I go to look through it to adjust it, help them out, the collimation, the interocular is wrong for my eyes, so I have trouble doing that. So it's easy set up for one person or two people. I have a buddy who I observe with a lot, and his interpupillary distance is almost with exactly mine. So we can set it up. I can get it set, and then we can just keep looking at objects all night long without fooling with the interocular. But it's a lot of fun once you get it set up. It's pretty cool.
You got to come up with some kind of script to focus to get that aligned. Measure your eyes, get one of those micrometers and measure the distance between your eyeballs, your pupils.
Yeah, that's the thing is when you rotate the tubes aren't perfect. I imagine if they're really expensive tubes, you still have the same issue probably because the tubes are floating on these spring-loaded dowels that are they're Teflon tipped wooden dowels that are spring-loaded so that one of them moves scope up and down, one moves it left and right, so you move them together and you can get the image combined.
It's still pretty impressive.
Anyway,
So when
Yeah.
are we
Uh,
still headed towards the solar maximum, or did we pass yet?
they said it started. They say it's last about a year, kind of the top of a peak, But they're saying like the very end of October is what they officially said. Okay, that was the start. So they imagine like now through, end of October, roughly time frame is we're all in solar maximum. So basically we have about a year of really solar maximum. Then it slowly begins to peter out. But you can still have some pretty big deal off of solar maximum too. Last time there was probably 3 or 4 years afterwards, there was a couple really mondo spots came on. They were really big and very active, a couple of them in a row, like 2 months apart, they started coming on and they were really impressive. So the sun's cool because it changes by the minute, literally by the minute, and by the hour, there can be significant differences, especially in the chromosphere. photosphere, it's a little slower. It's a kind of a day-to-day thing. But anyway,
Yeah, I love watching the solar weather change every day.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is like a box of chocolates.
Anybody else have any other pictures or any information that you're looking for, or do you guys want to process, or Tom, do you want to, anybody want to process any data? Do we have time? Are you guys up for it?
We got 20 minutes left on the clock.
I mean, Agapios did it in like 10 seconds. When he processed the Mars, he's like, oh, while we're collecting data, let's, run through wavelets and boom. I'm not that good at that.
That's always a challenging thing. Everybody processes. It's kind of like the deep sky stuff. Everybody attacks it from a little different angle, and little different techniques. And it's just based on years of mistakes of what doesn't work, and you slowly eliminate things till you stumble upon something that at least works reasonably well.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for another mount. Um, they haven't available yet. So the one that I have is terrible. I gave up imaging until I got a new mount. What happened to my image?
Here's something I'll throw out there. I started thinking about this occultation of Mars. And I remember seeing pictures. I've never seen an occultation except Venus. I haven't seen, I've seen stars, but I haven't seen Mars, Jupiter, Saturn be occulted. And with Venus, the times I saw it, I think it was way more than it was at least a half of Venus or larger phase. But with Mars, I started thinking, remember looking at these images, and these guys have images, it's like in Sky and Tell and stuff. And you can see a sharp moon and a sharp Mars. So I started thinking, how am I going to photograph them? I want to photograph, because if you take a video, the whole drifting, from the time the Mars hits the edge till the time it's totally covered is about 28 seconds. So if you want to get it sharp, it moves quite a bit there. You're probably taking a video of only about 4 or 5 seconds, maybe that long, maybe 3 seconds, which gives you a really small stack to play with. Now, if you can get up to a couple hundred to 150 frames a second or something, you still have something to play with. But I was kind of amazed, thinking back on it, especially the ones with Saturn, because Saturn is really, really dim. Mars at least is bright and you can get high frame rate. Saturn, it's pretty hard to get up above 60 or 70 frames a second. And you only have just limited number of seconds to get a video when it kind of frees the moon and frees, the planet. Has anybody ever tried that? To get it mid occulted?
Not me.
You ever tried that, Gary?
For like you're talking about on the dark side of
No, I'm just looking at the occultation itself. You always see these pictures where the moon is covering maybe half of Saturn or half of Jupiter.
yeah.
But so I'm thinking it'd be nice to get a picture of Mars real close and have it like half covered, But the half covered part, is
Yeah, I have done that with Saturn, but it was on the it was occulted. The moon had phase, so it wasn't a full moon, so it was on the shadow side, on the other side of the terminator, like on the dark side of the moon.
Yeah.
And that worked out fine because you're not dealing with the glare of the moon itself. So I guess you could do it. It would be on the back end, or depending on how the
here it's going to be almost a full moon. Now the good news is Mars is probably going to be, as far as the brightness per square area, we'll call it, probably just as bright, maybe brighter than the full moon.
Well,
it's really, yeah. But I'm just thinking, like, they're trying to get a sharp image, though. You're shooting a video, but your video is going to be very short. definitely less than 5 seconds. I mean, you're looking at
Yeah.
a really short video. When you did Saturn, were you shooting videos in those, or that was that back in the film days?
I did it both. Shot it using a DSLR, but I also shot it using a webcam, back in the early
Yeah.
days. Planetary, like one of those 2U cams or something like that.
So were you shooting like a 3 second exposure or something really short?
I'm not sure. I'm actually trying to look up what.
Because the moon's
what I
moving,
did
it's
back
covering
then.
it pretty quickly,
Yeah, it would.
So it seems like a interesting challenge. You ever try anything like that, Sandy?
No.
They're not cheating and just copy paste and slide
Yeah,
it over
right.
a little
Cover
bit.
half of it. Well, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, Photoshop magic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah,
We
you
used
could do that, of
use it
course.
for a minute before it occults and then just
Now we have to wonder about everything, John.
hey, we live in a post-reality world,
Yeah, really.
I'm wondering if you're really in front of that, star cluster or not.
He's in
Yeah.
space, man.
Yeah,
I can make a program through AI too.
Move to one side a second, Steve. I want to see that cluster map. Is that Caroline's Rose?
That is, and I took that.
That's the Caroline's. That's one of my favorite star clusters.
that's cool.
I really like that. It's a nice shot.
So this is actually let me do the share thing. I'm gonna move this over here though, so it doesn't get out. So let's do screen one. So this is Saturn
Yeah.
on the bright side, and I don't have it. I'll have to see if I have an image with it partway. I think I do. But
That's a nice shot. The moon is
That's
the
good.
moon's still has a sharpness, and it's moving towards Saturn at a pretty good clip.
yeah, now this here I say it's a single image. So this is shot as a single image, but
Yeah.
I increased the brightness of Saturn to bring it out. It was fainter.
Look at those
You
rings.
pretty much nailed that, Gary.
So this is done afocal. This is literally taking my little Canon A50 point and shoot, one of those small the early Canon point and shoots, and holding it over the eyepiece.
Oh man, afocal. Wow,
Yeah,
excellent.
this is that's shot afocal.
Wow, that's really good.
Let me see what I have as far as
And did you say this was back in when did you do this?
01, huh?
This is
What was I
2001.
doing?
So this is a series of 3. This is with it partway obscured.
Hmm.
So this is JPEG artifact.
Yeah.
And that's a little less
That's
of
cool.
it. And that's
Yeah.
the whole thing showing.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's what I want to try to get. I want to try to get, this kind of a series there where it's closing and then, partially gone maybe, and then maybe just a tip showing and
Yeah, well, you can see here, this is less than a minute,
oh yeah.
right? It's less than a minute. It's showing 1939, and then just before 740, and then just slightly after 740. It goes from being just nipped to halfway gone.
And Mars in comparison during this occultation, which will be at its biggest, will be smaller than the disk of Saturn, not the rings. The disk will be a little smaller than that. So it's going to be pretty tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
I mean, the whole time it takes to cover is 28 seconds from the time it tips till the time it's totally occulted.
So this is a composite image. So this I shot as a composite rather than just dodging Saturn. So this is 2 back-to-back images. This is again a focal. This is with my 9mm Nagler. The other one was with my 12. Same camera. So you can actually see. Well, you can see where it was where it was dropped in, right, because of the background, but you can see a little bit of banding on Saturn.
Yeah. A little bit
But
of
that was
Cassini's
two
division.
different exposures, that one. These are the same exposure, just dodged, just Saturn dodged.
Yeah. Mars is so much brighter than Saturn. I mean, Mars is brighter than Jupiter as far as when you're exposing. I mean, it's quite a bit brighter,
Yeah.
at least
Guess I
twice.
should have used when I rotated this. You can see I just rotated the thing and then it has like a grayish background. So this is the original picture. That's just the background from the after the rotation. Yeah, that's
Hopefully it'll
interesting.
be clear.
And I have it another night too. These are both 01. So this was shot.
Trying to
Oh,
wonder why I
this is
didn't
the
see
one
that.
where it wasn't full. This is this is shot like, I don't know, so 1228. So
Pretty close to full,
2001,
though.
so 1228. So one was shot 1130. So this is a month later. This is one lunar cycle later, almost. You can see that it's not quite full. The moon's not quite full. So this is a single shot, I believe. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's a single shot. And I probably have one where where Saturn is partially blocked. Let's see. So that's 1228. Let's see what I have here. Yeah, these
Did
are
you use
a raw
filter
image.
for that? Like a moon or sky glow filter?
No.
I'm wondering if there's a way, if you did like a moon filter or something where you can shade the moon. Oh wow, that is great. You got half of Saturn.
Yeah, so these are just successive pictures. So that's right out of the camera. That's 1820. That's 1819 image. I'm going backwards. There's 1818, very, very overexposed. So as I was doing this, I'm, honing in on the exposure. That's 17. So that 18 was probably a test. Hey, maybe I can pull a little more out of Saturn. And then it was way too exposed. And then I went back to the original exposure.
Kind of thinking with the filter idea, if you can dim the moon without affecting Saturn, there's not as much contrast.
You wouldn't be able to separate them.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that would be, if you're using a filter, it's going to affect everything unless you do something that is like the equivalent of it and
occulting disc,
an eyepiece with an occulting bar in front of it or something like that. So this is cool because this is the next shot where it's totally gone. So that shows you how fast it's moving.
Yeah.
If I look at the time,
yeah, look at the metadata.
Yeah, if I look at the timestamp on that.
401.
So yeah, but that's I'm not sure.
Oh.
Oh no, I think it would be. It probably would be. Yeah, it would be because this is right from the image.
The disk, yeah.
Yeah, this is right from the image. And then this one is
That's some nice color and contrast there.
Nah, maybe it's been copied if that's the modified data.
No, this is a modified date then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might be able to do it. So 1820. Let me look right on the image. It should be the same. If I look at the details, there might be a second date in there. It is.
The tool can rip
It is. So one is at 3 in the morning. And then the other one was 1819, 1818. So that's that one. So let's see when that was taken. I'm doing it over here. So here we go. Yeah, so they're basically back to back. It's not
Yeah.
showing seconds, and they're
Yeah.
both showing 3 a.m.
Fast.
Yeah, so it's happening fast. Within a minute or so. So yeah, you're gonna be in a couple seconds, Tom.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Mars,
If I try
right?
to do a video, you've got to be bang bang,
Yeah,
very short.
this is the whole folder. If I pull the folder over. So these are the process shots. Here are the ones that have like some information on them. Like the file name has some information. And this is on an Alt-Az mount. This is not a tracking mount. This is a little Teleview upswing mount. So this was just literally get it in the
Right,
little
yeah.
LCD display while I'm holding it up to the eye. I had it made a little adapter that kind of sits on the rubber eyepiece cup.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the camera, I used a little piece of bungee cord, like a real thin bungee cord. And I would just hook the camera onto this little adapter that press fit onto the
So
rubber
you
eye.
wouldn't have to keep moving it
I don't have
around
to
to get the
touch it.
right.
Yeah, so I don't have to touch it. Then I would put it
Yeah.
on like a 2-second exposure delay.
Mhm.
I would hit the shutter, and then 2 seconds later, hopefully the ringing's done.
That came out pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, so these are raw shots. These are all raw shots. You can see they're kind of all over the place. That's the end of it. But it helped the fact that the moon wasn't 100% full. I thought that was a neat effect, seeing the moon shadow obscure. Not the moon
Yeah.
shadow, but like the dark side of the
The
moon.
limb, yeah, the dark limb.
The dark limb. Thank you, Tom. That's the word I'm looking for. So stop share. Yeah. Anyway, when is that happening?
I think it's the 14th or 16th of January. So it's coming up.
Coming up
Like it's
soon.
like in a month and a few days.
And you know what time about? Is it
Yeah, it's at a pretty good time. I think it's like it's around 10:30, 11-ish or something like that.
Oh,
So
that's nice.
so it should be up over my house in the east, with what I'm hoping, and high enough above it so I'm above the roof currents, where the heat comes from.
Right, exactly.
If
Yeah.
I'm lucky. But I think at the time, I think I thought it was going to be kind of a reasonable shot.
Very cool.
That is cool. Yeah, I'll have to keep that in mind. Yeah, so
I got a little blurb on it with some um what text it called? The I got I'll tell you, it's called the Stellarium with the Stellarium captures in the newsletter the January newsletter when it comes out, January 1st. It'll have all the times and it'll show where it's going to hit and everything. So I cut and pasted that and wrote a short little, very short word-wise piece on the occultation.
Oh, cool.
Just
It
so
looks like it's the
remind
13th.
everybody.
It looks like I happen to have Stellarium open on my other monitor, so I just dialed around, and the moon, it's around 10:30 or so on the 13th of January.
13th, okay.
Yeah, this is from my backyard, but
Yeah, so it's at a pretty good time. It's up high, and it's up high enough,
Yeah, what is it? So it's 62 degrees.
Yeah, so I mean, it's gonna be well
That's really
clear.
high. Yeah, that's nice.
That take some of the atmospheric dispersion crap out.
So Mars magnitude then is minus 1.42.
Yeah.
Reduced to minus 1.27 because of the air mass stuff. And let's see what the moon is. The moon's it's minus 12.
Yeah. but that's over a bigger area, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you
So
can't do
in
your RL.
comparison, you probably might be able to. It's hard to say. I don't know. I won't know till I get there, but maybe exposed for Mars, and the moon is maybe one or two stops underexposed. It could be kind of a, kind of nice. You'd be able to see a fair amount of detail in the moon,
Yeah.
without being
Yeah,
washed.
I'm trying to see when it goes in. It goes in on 9/18 in the evening. Oh, the other thing too, the moons. Like Phobos is going to get occulted first.
Yeah, I'm not going crazy here, Gary. It's a full moon.
You don't think you're going to see Phobos? Come on, Tom. If anyone could pull out those little moon details, I'd like to see surface detail on the moon, Tom.
Moons,
That's the expectation. Come on.
So would I, but not in my lifetime.
You're not gonna let us down now, are you?
You need a Barlow on your Barlow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to put that 5X on.
Amazing how big, when you zoom in, how big the moon is compared to Mars. It's just enormous.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Oh
Well, you're
man.
talking because especially on this pass, I mean, it maxes out at about 14 and a half arc seconds. Last time was 17 and a half about, So
Wow.
it's a big difference.
Yeah, that's cool.
Anyway.
Definitely, yeah, I look forward to that article in the newsletter. I'm gonna grab a couple of screenshots while I'm here though. While I have.
Yeah, do that.
Telling you, it'd be cool to at least look at it with even binos just to see it disappear.
Oh
Definitely.
yeah, be really cool. Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna probably going to be torn between trying to image it and view it at the same time.
Exactly.
One is
Yeah.
you have one eye and an eyepiece and one eye on the screen or something, and just
Hmm.
just twist away real quick, look in the eyepiece for 5 seconds, go
Missing
back, take
both.
an image, and
No.
kind of a crazy night, but worth it.
Yeah, thanks for that heads up. We're technically at time. I don't know if one last anybody been sitting on something, but they've been burning to say.
Are you guys gonna be looking? I know January 13th, right around that time, there's a comet too, right by sunset. So it's probably a busy time. Comet G3. Are you guys planning on imaging that at all, or is it too low in the sky?
I'm not
Is it
aware
too
of it.
early to tell yet?
I wasn't thinking. If comments are low, I have bad horizons at my house. I have a pier out back, and so I'm kind of limited with a house on the east and trees on the west, and I have this area about maybe 80, 90 degrees wide, kind of in the middle, like 45 degrees on both sides is lost, but I got the main part and the meridian and stuff. So the stuff by low in the sky, I can move to the front. If it's in the morning sky, I got a better chance because I can put my one scope on a portable mount and take it out there. But to get the west, I have to travel, and
Yeah.
that's
G3's right with the sun. It's like right next to the sun, it looks like.
Yeah, G3. It's
C
I
20
think
how
C
bright is
2024 G3 Atlas.
that's
Yeah,
it. That's it. And a couple days prior, it should be in the morning, but again, it's pretty close to the sun, and
how bright
you're
is
only
it?
going to have a few minutes to grab it.
Yeah, does it say how
magnitude
bright it is?
-2,
Magnitude 1.
-2.0 is what Wikipedia says.
Yeah, it's right at the sun though, probably.
Minus
It's like this.
1.2.
I mean, this last comet was almost -5, remember? But not when we saw it. When we saw it, it was closer to, 2.
That one was a little
Yeah.
bit of a disappointment, I think.
Oh.
They
It
hyped
was
it.
I liked the length of the tail, but it was just
Yeah.
short-lived, It was one of those things where it had a really good 7 to 10 days where it was really good. And then it dropped off pretty rapidly, became more of a photographic object, but visually it was good for a couple nights. You get a nice tail, you can see the tail maybe 8, 10 degrees at its best.
You guys talking about the Chushan Atlas
Yeah,
or the other
yeah,
one that broke
yeah.
apart?
No, the one that Tushan Atlas.
Yeah. How do you pronounce
A
that?
good photo of it.
The
If you
Purple
guys want to
Mountain.
see it
Purple
real quick.
Mountain. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see it.
Let's see what we got here. I don't know if you guys can see my screen.
Now, you should be able to click the green up arrow at the bottom that says share
You see the bottom there?
on your Zoom app.
Right in the middle.
It's a green button.
Sorry. There it is. Share. And then I'm getting layouts.
Yeah, you have to pick one. What do you want? There you go.
Uh,
Get something.
Did that come up?
Yep, got
Or
it.
should we
Your,
share? All right, so
You see, that had a nice tail. There was a few days where it really
so this was right over at Valley Forge Park.
we see the thumbnails.
Yeah. That's one of them. That's right over at the radio control field that you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
And
And
these
we're
are
not
just with iPhone.
Yeah, we're not seeing the enlargements,
Yeah.
Tom. We're seeing just all your thumbnails on the folder.
Okay.
If
I
you
guess I've got
double
to
click them.
choose something else in the.
If you double click, maybe it'll come up.
Yeah, if you double click, it should open it up.
You're sharing just that window or
You
whatever.
sharing the folder or your screen?
Yeah. The screen share is just the folder.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You have to exit the screen share and then come back and share your whole desktop, but that's no pressure. We can kind of see it though.
Sorry.
It's a common
But you're on
issue.
the clock.
This happens all the time, honestly.
Exactly.
We recognize those clouds though. Those
Yeah.
are
Screen sharing has.
I know they're iconic now. They're in every
Yeah, really.
pictures from the same nights, right?
Yeah, everyone's like, hey.
Everybody has that band going across that cuts the tail off.
Hey, how about that supernova? Did that blow up yet?
No. The
There
one
you
in Corona Borealis?
Yeah, is that a hoax or what?
No, it's not a hoax. It just it was a paper that
Donald Trump said it was
Al put out that they did a new look at it, and they think it's going to happen next year now. It's basically delayed a year.
There
There
you
you go.
go. You got it now, Tom.
Okay, good. So you guys might recognize this. This is Valley Forge Park.
Yeah, the General Wayne statue parking
Yeah,
area.
exactly.
Yeah, I know where that is.
You go right past it, and I couldn't believe how big it was. So I was like, oh, this kind of puts it in perspective.
What date was this?
It's this, I think this was October like 13th, somewhere around there. One of these, I think 14th.
Very nice.
So this is probably, October 14th, October 13th. And this is just with a like an iPhone on a tripod. And all I did was in the iPhone, you can open up the exposure. And so I just did, I guess it goes from like -2 to +2 exposure. So I just opened up the exposure and then took it. And then the other thing is they have night mode for that. That's that one. And then that I think is the best one. This was like 5 minutes earlier. And all these people kept on coming by with their headlights on. So I had to get the photo while there's nobody around. But here you can kind of tell there's nobody parked there.
Well done.
Yeah, nice.
Those two kind of came out good. And here I'm still getting started with my telescope, but this was through the telescope. And you can kind of see I had a focal reducer.
Yeah.
and you can kind of see it get dark toward the corners.
Yeah.
And so I'm still messing with how close I can get to the focal reducer without getting that vignetting. But that kind of came out pretty cool.
That's no tracking, right?
No tracking. This
Yeah.
was just take it as fast as you can get it,
Cool.
line it up. Here's
That's a
another
great
one, and I
vantage
couldn't
point.
even see this cloud. But again, it was just take it on the iPhone. I think this one might have been a 30-second exposure. Maybe it was 10 seconds with the iPhone. And I couldn't even see this cloud. But after the picture came out, you could see it. I guess over time it showed up. And yeah, you guys have just mentioned T Corona Borealis. I took that too. That's in October 6th. But yeah, it hasn't gone off yet. So I figured I'd get a before photo.
Now we need it to
That.
be quiet for 6, 7 months at least, to let it go around close to the
Yeah.
sun, come back up.
And there's your radio control field.
Yeah, that's a pretty shot of the field.
Yeah.
There's always a car or something parked with its headlights on and basically got it there. And then this one I really loved, but I got unlucky. There's too many airplanes that fly over there.
Yeah.
And
They're everywhere, man.
yeah, you can see it. It just came right through the top right corner there. And you could even see the lights on the wings blinking
Yep.
every,
Yep.
periodically there.
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of came out pretty cool with the clouds. I got to get Photoshop and just kind of Photoshop that out of there, but came out pretty good.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
That's a good vantage point there at that General Wayne statue.
Yeah,
You get a good view of the stuff. There was a Mercury transit back in 99 that a bunch of us DVA, the old head DVA members went over there and set up right like where you're talking about. We were just over kind of on the left side of the road in the field there where the hill is. And
Yeah.
the Mercury transit then was right at sunset. So we needed something with a really good western horizon that was, kind of open. It was actually the picture. There was a group picture I took of that event that was in the newsletter, the little brochure, not the newsletter, the little DVAA brochure for years and years. It was shot.
It's a great view because you're kind of up a little high.
Yep.
And it's interesting because like I think somebody was saying, God, there's such pains over there. The Rangers. There's another spot that has a great view of the western sky, but they don't want anybody there's no parking there. And they kicked me out of there one time too, but it's right along that main road that goes right by, the arch that they have there. And you kind of come up over the crest of the hill like this. It's right there on the right. And they put fencing up there now, but still it's worth it if you just park a little bit away and walk there because you're right on top of the hill and you're looking forever and it's due west. So if you ever drive there at sunset, you're coming over that hill and the sun's just right in your eyes. But this was pretty cool. I was floating around different spots of the park, and this I just thought gave it a lot of perspective with the tree and just how big
it's
it
always
was.
good to have that.
Yeah, it is
foreground
nice.
stuff. It's neat.
Yeah.
It's
And
good
you're
to
coming to the meeting tomorrow, you said, Tom?
Yeah, I'll be there.
I'll
Or
be there
Friday.
this time, Tom.
Friday.
Other
Friday.
Tom.
Sorry.
And you are going to be there, right, John?
Yeah.
To get your certificate.
Al was asking me too, so
Is Al going to be there?
seems like it. but he
Okay,
didn't
good.
say for sure.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll bring it with me. I got it ready to go this time.
very good.
I know, I felt so bad. I
Will be
called in
announced
sick.
2 times.
I only missed once. I called in sick. But
Yeah,
no,
but you'll be announced for the second time. but you're
there we
still-
go. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Thank you. All right.
Okay,
Well,
gentlemen.
great
Well,
job,
Okay.
everybody.
Take care.
good seeing everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care. Good night, everyone.
Take care.